Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for our panel today. My name is Antoinette Abboud, and I'm the Director of Customer Success at Levelset, and I'm joined today by some experts in construction payment, and we are going to talk about how to close your books out at the end of the year. So I'll go around, and I basically have some tiles on my screen, and I'll have you guys introduce yourselves in the order that I see you. And also, if you have any questions as a panelist, we have some questions we're going to be asking, but just click on the button that says raise a hand and you'll be able to type in your question. And we're going to try to leave about 10 minutes at the end to answer those, but we'll be sending out a blog post with any answers by Friday or Monday at the latest, so you'll have that information. Val, do you want to get us started?
Sure. My name is Valerie Olson. I work at Central Valley Environmental. I do the accounting, the billing, the collections, and I also do a lot of the compliance and also safety compliance.
Wonderful. Rob, you're next.
Hi, Rob Richardson with Cork & Steel Products. I'm the Director of Credit. I've been with Corkin about 18 years in construction and 30 plus years in credit altogether, and I oversee the whole AR function from order to cash app.
Great, thank you, Rob. Tom, you're next.
Yeah, hi, my name is Tom Brower. I'm the office manager, accounts receivable, accounting, kind of everything at JMH Engineering and Construction, and I've been with the company since about 2015.
Wonderful. Dennis.
Hi, my name is Dennis Highstreet. I've been with California Access Scaffold since its inception in 2012. I guess you'd call me the administrative manager. I handle the contracts and oversee the accounts receivable. I try not to get too involved in the collections, but I do sometimes, especially if it escalates up to me. And then I work with our controller is who applies the cash. And so I just I sit back and see what's going on.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all again for joining us. We're really excited to hear your expertise on what works well for you for closing out the books at the end of the year. So to kind of tee things up a little bit, when does the year-end process really kick into high gear for you and your team, and what's that typical process look like? I don't know who wants to go first. Want to raise a hand?
Sure.
Perfect. Tom.
So we're on a calendar year, so we kind of start kicking off in November, especially from an AR point of view, to really start trying to close out or collect as many jobs as possible before year end. And on the flip side of that, trying to bill as many jobs that we can before the year end.
What about Val, your team? When do you guys, is it pretty similar?
Yeah, it's very similar. Our year-end collection effort and billing that started October 31st. So it's getting a little crazy right now. So I utilize you guys Levelset so I can really kind of hammer on the non-commercial customers to get us paid ASAP.
Rob or Dennis, do either of you have a different kind of process or different timing for when you get this started?
No, this is Dennis. Similar. We start closing things out in November, try to collect as much money as we can, and bill as much as we can. Collections are tough over the holidays, though, as I think everyone knows. But yeah, very similar process.
Right. Are you relying, and this is for everyone, mostly on phone calls, emails, physical mailings? What is typically the best tool that you found in your arsenal for getting responses around the holidays?
I still find phone calls, even though it's kind of old school, to be at least my first line. And then if they're unresponsive, then follow up with emails. but I still find phone calls to be the most effective way.
Yeah, this is Rob. We use everything. So we start with phone calls. We know the customers that are going to dodge the phone calls. So we'll send them a dunning letter, maybe hit them with an email, and we go from there, see how they respond to that to see what our next step is in the collection process.
With, sorry, you're right. I know a lot of you have mentioned the holidays, and we all know it can be incredibly difficult to get in touch with people pretty much starting this week through the end of the year. Are there any other problems that you've noticed around closing time that you're facing, and do you have any kind of creative solutions that other people could maybe learn from for those problems?
Again, I find mail becomes a big issue at this time of year, getting it timely. So, we're going to encourage our customers to pay electronically, whether that's, electronic checks or credit card payments or wires or whatever, to kind of alleviate that. I kind of give 5 days for mail to get here, but when it starts coming to the holidays, that can double easily.
Yeah, very, very true. Very true. The holidays really slow the mail down here, out here in LA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have the same thing. So we have, I call it my 1-2 punch system. So we always will email the invoice to the customer first. Generally, that same week, somebody will follow up with a phone call. If we don't get a phone call, we'll send out a letter, and we will do that every week until we get a response. If we get no response, I send out those 10-day notices, and that seems to get somebody to get back to us pretty quick.
So that's what's called in our system the notice of intent to lien. So you're saying we haven't received this payment and this is escalating. Now, I know Rob also mentioned that he has a list of customers that he knows aren't going to respond. Is there anything special you do for that list of customers, Rob?
Depending on how far past due they are, they may receive a demand letter either through the mail, or we try to send them through the mail, and also the same way that they receive their invoices. And also, if the invoice email is different than a payables person, we'll also email it to an actual person's email as well, just to try to get that many different ways, avenues to get it to that customer as possible. But we're also looking at the whole AR though when we go into November. We're deep diving into the aging to see if there's unapplied cash, unapplied credits. This is a customer that pays by remittance or they pay by a lump sum. Do we need to contact them and say, hey, you have all these credits sitting out here. Do you want us to offset these for you, or do you want it on your next check? Make sure you pick these up so we can get these off our books too and get your account paid down, because you have credits that are older than your invoices, but they're in different buckets. So it looks like you're past due when you're truly not. So we really get into the aging to see what we need to do. And there might be issues for us where there's a pricing discrepancy and we're waiting for someone at the branch level to issue a credit. And we don't find that out generally until someone goes past due and we start making phone calls and sending letters, and then we find out that invoice 1234 has got a pricing problem and we were due a credit and we haven't seen it, and we're not going to pay it until we get it. So then we got to start contacting employees in Cork and Steel to find out what's going on. Then we have to follow up with them to make sure they're getting their job done. So all that's wrapped into all of this year end for us to get all this as efficient as possible.
Is the internal communication just as tricky as the external communication when you're trying to get in touch with people inside?
This time of year it is, because we have the same issue. You got vacations scheduled. We don't know who's going on vacation and when they're going to go, when they're going to be back. So you don't know until you hit that email button and you see that response that comes back that says, I'm out of the office until X. So you never know.
Does anyone else, Dennis or Tom, do you have lists of special customers that you know need a different tactic or that are always going to be on your list at the end of the year?
Yeah,
not so much, because we're strictly a construction company. So, our bigger issues are, so we're always going to be paid when paid. I'm 75% a sub or a sub, and the other 25% I'm a direct. So, my bigger concerns are getting, making sure that we're all compliant and that compliant process is still moving forward through the holidays, because I'm sure like everybody else on the call, every company runs a lien now, and someone goes out the door for a vacation, it doesn't seem like there's a backup to, fill that void. So at least internally, I try to drive everyone to make sure that they're, where they need to be before they go on vacation or take time off.
Does that process start for you like well before October 31st with just kind of gearing up for the holiday season, sending out reminders?
It's an ongoing. Usually what keys me is someone puts in their request for time off. Mm-hmm. I'll make a note of, not just make a note of it for me to know that they're not going to be there, but follow that with, okay, we're at XYZ when your time is coming off. Where are you going to be, or what are you going to do to ensure that that's been resolved? So,
Great.
And the flip side about that for new or business coming in is the same thing with the customers. They want to get this work done. They're on a limited time, and so they want to start jobs with minimal or no information, and to really push back on the PMs to make sure we're getting contracts and for us to be able to.
That's my big struggle, is getting those contracts in hand.
Yeah.
So I told my PMs, I'm sending out notices, the preliminary notices, and they go, well, then they're going to call me. I'm like, well, then you should have gotten the contract. I don't know what to tell you.
And Dennis, I know you had something to add too.
Oh God, I'm listening to this going, oh my God, this is where we're at too. Getting contracts is tough. We start a lot of work without any paperwork, and then you're scrambling like crazy. We're a subcontractor most of the time, so pay if paid or pay when paid is always in play. But in a way, that can work towards our advantage, in that probably 60% of our customers we know are going to pay us when they get paid. Mm-hmm. And they're working hopefully with good owners. So, there's a whole block of customers we don't worry about. Although we'll call them and email them, see what the status of payment is. The other 30 or 40% we have to keep a close eye on. You get a lot of contractors that really don't know what they're doing. They can't handle their paperwork very well. They're not getting paid because of their compliance issues, and therefore we don't get paid. So, I can echo a lot of what I heard here. It's a circus all year long. It's not just year end. Trying to keep up on the compliance issues. It's a never-ending battle.
Yeah, I always try to push for, if we're a sub or a sub to be joint checked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, do you? Uh-huh.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't work all the time, but
Yeah.
Once I get that first joint check, then I feel comfortable the rest of the job.
Yeah, we should probably look at doing that more. Once in a while we do, but we typically roll the dice.
Well, for year end, I've heard a lot of stuff about how it's not just the year end. You're kind of prepping for this throughout the entire year, and You're working with not just your customers, but a lot of different internal stakeholders at your own offices to try and make sure that everything's accurate, everything's up to date. Inevitably, going into the end of the year, there are going to be a certain number of invoices that are not going to get paid. How are your teams accounting for that going into the end of the year? And, what tactics have you been using year long to reduce that number? Since you've all been in your positions for a while, you've been trying different things. What's worked?
For me, it's been the preliminary notices, whether it's an individual or a public works job or a federal job. I've utilized pretty much every form that you guys offer. I've had really great luck. My owner is very, very happy with the progress that we've had since we took on Levelset. It's very rare that we close out with unpaid invoices. Usually if we do, it has to do with retention for a project that is not yet complete, or they're just telling us that it's not done yet.
Yeah. Definitely. Rob, what about you?
For us, we have commercial projects as well as residential. So on our commercial side, everything is entered to Levelset. So we're utilizing the preliminary notices when the job starts, and then we're utilizing the notice of intent to lien when the dates for whatever state our jobs are in, because we can be in any state. So we're utilizing Levelset to track those dates for those specific states, and we let the notice of intent to go out, which helps us drastically get paid, if not on time, close to within a 30-day window of our invoice date, of the invoice due date. On the residential side, we can utilize demand letters to get paid. We can use our service charges as a negotiating tool. We can, either eliminate them or reduce them to try to get somebody to pay before the end of the year, so we don't have to write that off. And I also have a tactic. It's an IRS letter that I send out telling that that debt reduction is taxable, and if we don't get paid, we'll send a 1099 to the IRS. So that letter also helps to get paid.
I haven't heard that one before.
I haven't heard that either.
I haven't either. Yeah.
Wow.
If anybody wants it, just let Antoinette know, and I'll get it to her, and she can get it to everybody.
I'll send that out to everyone.
I'd love to see that.
Another tool that I use that Levelset offers to kind of keep driving compliance is I enter all the vendors as contacts in each project as I get a prelim from them as well. And then I use the request document for waivers to, per job. And then by using it in Levelset, I can look at a job specifically and see who I've requested from and who's replied and not replied, as opposed to, kind of bouncing around my email trying to find out if and when I sent a request out. So I found it to be a valuable tool to keep driving the process. As everybody knows, especially on commercial work, you're not going to get paid if you don't have lien waivers from your suppliers and subs.
Dennis, did you find anything different with any tactics that you've used that have been helpful?
Well, we always make phone calls and email, but then we have a series, I have a series of letters that I'll send out and make sure, like in our case, that the owner, I want the owner in the loop, the property owner. So I've got a series of letters. I'll send out I call it an ST letter, but it's respectful, saying, hey, here's your statement and you're falling way behind. Yeah. And if I don't get any response on that within about a week or so, I'll go to Sane, which is Levelset, and order a notice of intent. And I'll see if you get any response there. And if not, I will fill out a mechanic's lien and send it to the owner and the contractor. I won't necessarily record it yet, but that usually gets everyone's attention when they get a mechanic's lien in the mail. And I should preface that by saying we prelim every job. And our projects run from, $1,000 to $1 million, but everything gets prelimed. So oftentimes, by the time I get a lien recorded, it's not actually valid, but nobody ever seems to know that. So,
Right.
we'll escalate it through a series of letters, liens, whatever we got to do. And if, bottom line, if there's no response, I give it to our attorneys and let them take over.
So one thing that I noticed all of you have been saying is that you're being really proactive on your jobs as a preventative measure for, avoiding unpaid balances leading into the end of the year or in general.
Yeah.
Which is
you have to.
Really fantastic. When did you start that process? Or was that the way that your business always ran?
Well, in our case, California Access, it's really always run that way. You got to stay on everybody. It's the old squeaky wheel concept. If you allow the customers to ignore you, they will ignore you.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I call it being professionally aggressive, and you want that accounts payable team on the other side to be reviewing their AP aging and see, I know that JMH is going to call, so let's make sure we put them on our checkbook. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you
Sure.
have to. You have to stay professionally aggressive.
Mm-hmm. And I know that Tom also mentioned waivers as a tool, and everybody is talking about other documents they have to escalate even before they send the notice of intent to lien or the actual lien. Now, do you have kind of other software that you're using, like your invoicing software to send out reminders, or how does your team approach investing in technology to help you with this process so you have time to make phone calls? And
auto setup for that point of view. Mm-hmm. We use our aging as a Bible, and when using pay when paid as the example, for us it's about 50 days from billing day. You bill at the end of the month for that month. I'm expecting my customer to bill at the beginning of that following month. And, in California by law, the owner's supposed to pay within 30 days of receiving a billing. And then, my customer is supposed to pay within 5 days. So, I give it around 45, 50 days. And then if it's at that number, then on my agent, that's when we start making phone calls to get payment status.
Great.
That's how mine is. Once we get to about 20 days aging, that's when we start getting a little bit more aggressive. We still follow up on the phone calls. So we pretty much utilize everything that we can. We're doing the emails, we're doing Levelset, phone calls. I'm having the PMs go up the chain if we're not getting anywhere. They all call me the bulldog.
I think professionally aggressive is a very good.
That's a great way to put it.
Rob,
you don't want your department to be a reason why someone doesn't do business with you, but you also don't want to, be a doormat.
True. And that was kind of a learning curve for me, was finding that fine line. We have actually had some contractors that said, we're not going to work with you because you're too aggressive. And we're like, well, you don't pay us, so whatever.
Rob, I know you work in all states, and have you found anything different in states that have different types of lien law, prelim notice requirements, even voluntary kind of notifications?
Well, fortunately, I don't need to know any of that because I use Levelset. So, and that was our reason for going to Levelset. So we do budget for technology, for future technology, because you never know what's going to come next year that's going to help us even more. So as far as all the notices in all the states, once we started being able to sell, a few years ago, you and I spoke, I believe, and that's when I think we upgraded our software package to do all the 50 states. So 'cause there's no way to know and remember all the lien laws, and they're making changes. The legislators changing the laws in the states anyway. So it's impossible to keep up for that. So fortunately, we have all that set up and Levelsoft with the workflows, so that all those commercial, I think we have 70 jobs right now being monitored in Levelset. There's no way I can monitor those as far as first furnishing date, last furnishing date, and some of those notices, the monthly notices that some states require. So that's anything we can get technology-wise, we will budget for it. And like I said, we're waiting for future stuff to come out too.
And when you're looking for future stuff to come out, what kind of things are you not automating right now that you would want to kind of get some tech push for in the future?
Right now, we're not automating cash application, but we're looking into it to start that in second quarter next year. And I just actually started automating risk scoring that we've created in-house, but we have an outside programmer make all the programming changes and write all the API from the other outside credit reporting services to bring the data in. So that was just recent that we started that. So and I don't know what's coming next. So I go to a lot of conferences as well, mainly to find out what's coming next and network and talk to other credit people to see if what they're using. And that's how I get a lot of my information.
And I know as Rob mentioned, I've been working with him for quite some time. And one of the things is Rob has always been very tech forward and hasn't really had that much of a problem getting the backing for tech or support on his end. For all the other panelists, when you do decide to make a decision to buy tech, are there roadblocks internally? Do you feel like you can get the tech bandwidth or the help to set things up? Or is that still a bit of a struggle?
It's a struggle in my office.
I think unfortunately our industry is still kind of mirrored in the past, and technology is not at the forefront as it should be. I think that with my company, I'm kind of lucky to have a younger second generation owner who's more acceptable of tech changes. But the biggest thing for us is what the cost is. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to make. We made an expensive mistake going with a kind of a project management software that wasn't really for us, and we're eating a year of it.
Mm-hmm. Are there things right now that you wish you could kind of offload into tech and automate a little bit that you're kind of thinking about or pushing around?
Well, one of the things for us, again, because we're so compliance, we're a union company, so we're so compliance driven, is outsource, using a payroll service that can, report to all these tracking companies and our fringe benefit, accounting for our fringe benefits in a better way. And I'm hoping to go by January 1st, but and kind of part of my earlier statement was I kind of get pushback from the people that have been doing payroll for a long time and in-house that they're kind of nervous of a change.
Mm-hmm.
I have that same problem. We have two divisions. So we have asbestos abatement, and that is private sector, and then we have our demolition division, and that is signatory. And I would, because of all the compliance that goes with being signatory, I would like to see us utilizing that technology. But like you said, there's people, above me who have been doing it in-house for so long that the idea of switching over is terrifying to them. I think it might be a little painful at first, but I think it'd be a very smooth transition.
Dennis, are you guys facing any similar struggles?
Yeah, we are. We've got a in-house system that we've had for 30 years that is kind of, it's worn out its welcome. It works for us, but we also have an IT consultant looking at new software, what's on the market, so that we can, we can move on. We haven't made any decisions yet, but I know that he's checking it out, and we're trying to find something that works for our industry. Mm-hmm. Because you do have a whole bunch of facets. You've got the payroll issue, the AR issue, the billing. I think Tom or Rob said, it's an industry that's kind of mired in the past, and that's where we are. We're trying to get out of the past.
It's definitely, and that's something that we'll see a lot. We have a tool here that is really helpful, but it is hard to change habits and to change minds when things have been working a certain way for a while. But I think that's something that's really great. Going back to what everyone said earlier, you all have really proactive mindsets when it comes to communicating early on your jobs and making sure that you're communicating often. That's one of the biggest problems, that's being faced, and you're taking advantage of any tools that you can to help lift that process a little bit so you can focus on all of the other things that maybe there is a little bit more of a struggle with. So I would say that, it's really great to hear that you guys are winning those fights a little bit in getting approval for some types of technology, and you're exploring different things that are out there in different services. And I think that's fantastic. And, you've all talked about different tactics and different documents that you send out. How do you go into this and stay sane while you have all of the people on vacation and you're making all the phone calls, and you go in knowing exactly how it's going to run every year? What are some ways that you stay sane and keep your team sane?
For me, I have, as far as like the compliance and whatnot, I've created an in-house compliance tracker that I sort by dollar amount. So that way, I know we want the highest dollar amounts first. And that really kind of keeps us on track. I mean, it's still madness no matter what, but it's a little less to deal with when we have it mapped out.
Mm-hmm. I found over the years, I've been doing this for a long time, I've been in accounting for a long time, that especially at this company, but the hard and fast month end, quarter end, year end, they're not as hard and fast anymore. And at the end of the day, you want to collect as much as you can to make your year end as good as possible, and you want to bill as much as you can to make your year end possible. But at least my ownership, they're forward thinking enough to know that, we didn't bill it or collect it in December, then, we'll bill and collect it in January. To keep saying, you got to kind of cut it off and work on all the other stuff that has to do with closing year end from an accounting point of view. With, we're all in AR, but it seems like at least the people on the panel have, accounting responsibilities in general. I know I am. So, I have to make sure accounts payable is clean and payroll is clean, and, that, we're able to close the month of December and the year 2019 from a financial point of view. So at some point during the month, and that kind of bleeds into January, obviously, for everyone, is that, you have what you have, and now your focus has to shift to, your financials.
What's that cutoff for you?
Kind of mid-December.
Mid-December.
Yeah.
Dennis, I think you were going to add something?
Well, no, I was just going to say it's very true. You got to start getting around to closing the books. And I think what Tom said is true. If you don't bill it in December, you're going to bill it in January. You just got to move on.
Rob, anything different on your end?
Well, for me, I fortunately don't have to do any accounting. So that's one thing I don't have to worry about. And we're pretty automated with our ERP system. So when we put orders in, once they're delivered or will call orders are picked up, they're invoiced that day. So we invoice every single day. And at the end of the month, all of our invoices we're 93% electronic on invoices. So those all go out. We don't touch them. I don't have to worry about them. It's not like 10 years ago. 10 years ago, we weren't as automated, and I didn't have Levelset, and I didn't have credit scoring, so we couldn't go look at accounts not only by balance, but go look at them by who's our worst account, not only by balance, but just by score, and looking forward, who's going to be bad in January and February. So those issues have diminished over the years because of technology for me. So we also don't have the rush in December to get everything finished, because it's an ongoing, it's every month. It's the same process.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned ERP. Could you explain what you mean for any of our attendees in case they might not have an ERP software?
So ERP is, now you got me, I can't remember what it stands for. Enterprise Resource Process. So it runs our whole entire company from HR, payroll, sales, accounting, accounts receivable, accounts payable, imaging. So we do imaging, everything, and everything is in our ERP system. Any bolt-on software we have, like software as a service, like Levelset or our invoice processing company, all that is done through API and through FTP every night. So, and that's all connected to our ERP as well. So we're not logging in and doing anything manual out on the internet and re-entering any information. Mm-hmm. So that ERP just kind of flows all month and takes care of everything throughout the whole entire company.
And you mentioned some credit scoring. Is that feeding into your software as well?
Yes, so that feeds into our ERP system. So it was all done on spreadsheets, years ago, and I had formulas, and I'd have to go and pull, 400 reports from the various providers, and then we'd have to manually key these into a spreadsheet and then get a score and then manually key it into the ERP. Now we're just using API. We're pulling all the information, and that spreadsheet was basically taken and put into our ERP, and we had a programmer write all that and use all the calculations and put all the tables in the ERP. So not even using Excel to score any customers anymore. It's doing it every day. It's doing it in real time right now as we're doing. So someone goes past due, they're 30 days past due, they make a payment tomorrow, it might affect their score. Their score might go up a little bit because they paid that past due, kind of like a our own FICO scores.
Mm-hmm.
You pay off a balance, and it used to be you had to wait a month. Now they're processing daily too.
Now, do you use that risk assessment when taking on new business? So the sales team would use it as well, or is that more of a back-end credit tool?
It's from the very beginning. So when we get a credit app, we obviously have to go do the scores manually for that. Mm-hmm. But once I have the score, then we use that to assign a credit limit. And those scores are also printing on the salesman's reports every month. Mm-hmm. So, and the theory is, hey, look at these scores and look at your customers, and the high scores, go sell whatever you want. We want to sell more to those customers. The low scores, you don't need to go to as often, or, you need to let me know, because we might need to do a job sheet. And and if they're commercial, we're going to want to do some sort of preliminary letters on these. So the lower ones, and they all have job sheets, all of our salesmen. So we're kind of training them to know high score versus low score and what you need to do when you see those on your sales reports now.
Do any of the rest of you have a similar process where you're communicating credit information back to sales, or is it kind of the sales is leading the charge with what's coming in?
Yeah, in our case, this is Dennis, sales leads the charge. We don't have a credit scoring system. I wish we did, but we don't have anything.
For JMH, because again, we're just strictly a construction company and a union construction company and all commercial, our credit risk is offset by, prelims and using that process.
Yeah,
We have other
that's
divisions
true.
where we're a material supplier and a non-union construction company and equipment rental company. And that's a technology that I have not been able to get my company to buy into. And previous places I worked at, we just done a Bradstreet to do our credit scoring, at least initially. And if they weren't big enough to make a Dun & Bradstreet splash, then we'd have to kind of go old school. But at this company, we're all old school when it comes to non-construction approval, and by taking a credit app and giving checking references and checking and trying to check banks. So that's another process that's kind of gone by the wayside for almost all banks. They won't do it anymore. But and then just keeping a limit as to how big they can go without filing a prelim. Yeah, but for outside of construction work, we use $1,000 limit. And if it's 1,000 or more, then we're going to file a prelim.
Yep. That's us too. We're the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has all been really great information, and we're coming up on about 15 minutes left. So I was actually going to pause this screen share, and we have some questions from the audience. So would you guys mind if we answer a few questions real quick?
Sure.
Heck no, let's do it.
All right, wonderful. So for this one, I believe the question was directed towards Tom. What project management software was not good for your team? If you're comfortable.
WebCore.
Okay.
At further review, it was one of those things where I think we got kind of excited about the shiny object at a trade show and made a commitment, and then really upon further review, it's a general contractor. To me, it's more geared for a general contractor as opposed to a sub or a subset.
Okay. We do have a question that's a little bit more general for everyone about the other software that you are using for things like payroll and, maybe a little bit more specifics on what is working really well. Kind of some of the trade secrets that you would share when you see people at a conference. But if anyone wouldn't mind sharing what they're using and enjoying.
Well, we just moved to QuickBooks in 2017. We had a software ERP system that we bought back in the 80s when the original ownership, started the company, that we didn't use at 100%. We just used it for strictly payroll, AP, and AR. And, it was basically an unsupported software long before I started with the company. And and how much it costs to every year. I mean, it was probably a $40,000 to $50,000 initial investment and another $8,000 or $9,000 a year to keep getting renewed. And then we switched to QuickBooks for a much smaller price tag. but QuickBooks isn't a true ERP system. We can't do some of the things like you get from a Sage or an Oracle or JD Edwards. But from an accounting function, we've been very happy with it. And it's really given us the ability to automate our processes a lot more, especially on the accounts receivable side. I mean, I'm at 100% electronic invoicing. In fact, to the point, if someone asks us for a mailed invoice, we just say, no, we don't do it. I mean, if you were a $100,000 a year customer and you wanted to get, your invoices emailed, that's not the case yet, but I would do it. But you have to be a pretty good sized customer to be able to push that through.
Yeah. For us, we're in QuickBooks, the contractor version, but we're actually in transition right now, trying to sort of get away from that and move over to bill.com, which I love QuickBooks, especially when it comes to the progress billing. It's a very, very helpful tool for me. I've noticed bill.com, it's not very intuitive from a billing standpoint as far as doing the progress billings, but when we're doing individual billings, to private homeowners and private properties, it does, we get paid a lot faster because bill.com does provide a link via email for the customer to click and they can pay right then and there, whereas our QuickBooks invoices doesn't have that. So I'm sort of in transition, and I don't really like change that much, so I'm having a hard time, but I'm hoping that bill.com will eventually be 100% on there as soon as we can figure out the progress billing problems.
Dennis?
You want me to go, Antoinette, or Dennis?
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, this is Dennis. We're still in the 70s over here. Like I said, we're looking for new systems as we go along. But right now, we print out an invoice and mail it, or possibly email it. But we've got to catch up, is what we have to do.
What about you, Rob? Yeah.
So our software is called SHIMS. And for full disclosure, Cork and Steel does not sell steel. We sell HVAC products, and we have a whole other roofing division as well. So that software is created for the HVAC industry back in the early 90s. So we're fortunate enough to have one of the original programmers on retainer, and we probably spend $25,000 to $30,000 a year modifying it. So we're always updating the technology to keep up with the times. So, because we even now outsource our sales tax calculations. We don't even let the ERP system do it because there's other companies that are more sophisticated than we are. Because sales tax is just like liens. It changes all the time and we don't know all the laws. So we're fortunate in that regard. So you can't get SHIMS anymore. You would have had to have it back in the 90s in order to still have it.
Well, and I know Val and Tom, you both said QuickBooks. Is it that the online version or desktop? Just to clarify for anybody joining the call.
Yeah,
mine's the desktop. Sorry.
We're the desktop. And I'm the same as we're the contractor version as well.
Okay. So with that, I know that almost all the questions seem to be about the different softwares that people are using, either for payroll, for billing, for project management. There are a lot out there, and even within each type, like someone mentioned Sage, there are a couple of different Sage products that you can use. And it's always really great to source that out and see who's using what. There are great groups online. If you're a restoration company, Restoration Rebels are out there. So connecting to those professional groups, LinkedIn, Facebook, always a really great way to vet new technology when you're looking into it, to see what the benefit is for your team and for your industry specifically, to make sure it can accommodate the needs that you have, since you guys are the experts for that. Did we have any other questions from the general group to come in? I'm not seeing any, but you can always email them to me at Antoinette@levelset.com. We'll be sure to send out an email after this with my information. If you have any other questions that you want to ask about this topic, I can make sure we get some info from our panelists. Rob volunteered to, I think, earlier answer all of your questions at any time, so I'll send them over to him too. But, thank you so much for joining us. And if you think of other topics that you want to hear from industry professionals on and experts in your area, just let us know. And a really big thank you to our panelists for sharing your time and your expertise today. We really appreciate it.
No problem.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. See y'all later. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.